Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I changed it to the phone, but it should be going through this. There's no way for me to test this because I'm using my phone as my microphone. Can you hear me now? Yes? 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 Praise God. Thank you. We will master this yet. And so I did a whole video on Instagram the other day, right after I had done my last video, saying, give yourself permission to start all over again, which is kind of connected to today, but we'll see how this goes. So let me start again. We are live. Thank God. I'm going to see if I can trim this part out. We'll see. So why making more money won't make you richer? That's what we're talking about today. I'm going to share a story, a tale of two clients, one which might surprise you around which one's richer at this point. And for the purposes of today's topic, I know we could define rich or a wealthy life or richness using lots of different areas of focus. Today, we're going to be talking about good old-fashioned money, okay? And I know that might be triggering to some. Just know that you're here for a reason, on purpose, okay? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And we are also going to be making sure that you like, subscribe, and share the show. Let me know where you're watching from, if you are watching live or on the replay, so that I can say hello. And why do you want more money? So that's the question that I would have you answer. Doesn't have to be big and grandiose. I'll tell you, when I first started out doing this online stuff, I just wanted to be able to pay for our family vacations without feeling like I had devastatingly impacted our family and our lifestyle because of a health condition that I was going through at the time. Now, this was almost 10 years ago, but back then, our family vacations were what broke up the monotony of our 9 to 5, our regular, day-to-day life. And so the thought, the idea that because of something that I couldn't control that was happening to me, because that's how I felt at the time, I had such guilt and remorse around the fact that because I was healing, because this was happening, that there would be a financial impact, right? And so that's why I wanted to make more money. But I quickly had to rearrange how I thought about money because I came from an employee mentality. And although my parents were entrepreneurs, they were under the old blanket of work harder, work harder, work harder, right? Like hard work is what gets you the result. And I'm here to tell you that while working is required, it doesn't have to be hard, and it doesn't have to be long, and it doesn't have to be laborious or drawn out or something that you actually hate. In fact, I'm going to hypothesize for you to just consider a possibility where you get to make as much money as you possibly want, probably more than you can imagine right now, simply by doing something that is so simple and easy for you, maybe not for everybody else in the world, but for you specifically, that makes it feel effortless and easy and light and fun, like something that you would look forward to. Okay. And if right now that's not really in the realm of your possibility, or it's not in the realm of your personal experience, just know that as long as you are open to the fact that you are considering that you could be making more from less and being able to work less hard, right? In order to do so, that you are already retraining your brain to start thinking about wealth and money and having a rich life in a very different way. Okay, so here's what I want you to consider. If all it took was making more money, like action, like the act of making more money, to make you richer, to have you be wealthier so that you have more in the bank, if you have more money to spend, that you have more money to give, then why is it that the people who make the most money, and you might be saying, well, but Susan, there are people who are making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and they are the richest people in the world. And yet there is evidence that there are some of the richest people in the world making millions of dollars who die penniless, alone and broke, who are bankrupt despite having millions and millions of dollars earned, right? So it's not about how much you make. The story that I love to tell, and I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face because it inspired me as a young child to become a millionaire, was seeing is a school teacher who stood up on stage sharing her story, and she was retired, had worked as a school teacher her entire life. Now, depending on where you are in the world, maybe school teachers get paid a lot of money. But I'm going to guess that just like where I am in the world, which is Canada, part of North America, that school teachers are often the most hardworking people in the world, and yet vastly the most underpaid. And so this school teacher had said she had made more than $25,000 her entire life. Now, this was some years back, but $25,000. And yet she retired a millionaire. Now, at the time, I didn't know a millionaire. I didn't know what a millionaire looked like outside of what I saw in the tabloids, on TV, in the magazines, and on the news. And so to see this, and I can still picture her clear as day, this little woman with glasses and slightly wavy short hair, wearing modest clothes. And she described her life as one that was very simple, but one that she loved. And she got to do whatever she wanted. She got to spend time with her family. She had a beautiful house. It was well cared for, had no debt on it. And she got to spend her life traveling and gardening. And she was not somebody that lived an extravagant lifestyle. So that was enough for her. And in my mind, as a young child, having $1 million just felt like, whoa, that is so much money. And so whatever that number is for you now, because now that I've become a millionaire, I realize that's not a lot of money, right? That's not a lot of money when you have bills to pay, when you have places to go, when you have things that you want to do, when you have people you want to care for, when you have causes that are near and dear to you, that in order to live a certain lifestyle, and depending on where you are in the world, that amount, right? And you insert whatever it is that you thought as a child maybe was like a really big amount of money, your definition of being rich, that doesn't go necessarily as far as I thought it would. And so with that in mind, I want you to think about right now that, number one, what is rich for you? Because that is going to be important for how you're going to see the information that I provide to you today, right? Because it's all a matter of perspective. It's all a matter of context. It's all a matter of your own personal experience. And so I'm not going to tell you what's right for you because only you can do that. But what I'm going to share is my experience and some stories that will help to highlight some critical pieces that I think is important for you to consider. So when I heard this story of this woman, it blew my mind because it allowed me to understand this exact thing that I'm trying to impart today, which is it's not about making more money. It's about what you keep. And this is not from I'm going to hoard all the money a la Scrooge. This is about what is it that would allow you to feel luxurious, abundant, like you had more than enough. What is that number for you, right? And if you get to a point in your life where all you're doing is making so that you can spend it, I don't think that that's necessarily the right answer either, because then you're never going to be able to rest. For as long as you keep going, you're going to have to keep making some sort of effort or action steps in order to see money manifested in your life. And I'm not talking about just like I'm imagining something and money's just going to come to me and then boom, I've won the lottery. Because the reality is that even for people who say those sorts of things, that they had to take an action, that they had a hunch or an unction or a leading that, I think I should go and buy a lottery ticket today. I think I should go and fill out an entry for a sweepstakes. Like they had to take some sort of action. And because of the haphazard kind of nature behind those sorts of activities, that is not something that you can easily count on or rely on. Now you can count on yourself, right? And I've talked about in past videos why I believe that the best investment is not just a stock or a bond or crypto or anything like that. It goes beyond that. And I'm going to give you the punchline. It's you. Okay. You are the best investment because of all of the reasons that I'm going to outline as we go through. So let me share with you the two stories, and then it will allow you to kind of ponder or think about your own situation scenario and what are some of the activities that you're doing. So let's start with the client who actually makes more. She was running a $1 million business, soon to be a multi-million-dollar business, because with my help, we were able to shortcut, and she'd already made $1 million in her business. We just did it faster. So we shaved off an additional 3 months. And that meant that she was now on track to be a multi-million-dollar business. Now, what do you think was going on just from that? Now you probably have some guesses because of the way that I have set this story up. But if you would think that she was growing her wealth and incrementally getting richer and richer, then the answer would be no. Now, at the time that I was working with her, she really just wanted help on sales. Despite the fact that I kept encouraging her and actually saying, please utilize my other skills, because I have built a $15 million business in 18 months. I have worked for a global 300 company with over 100,000 employees around the world. And when you have that kind of pedigree, which I'm very grateful to have because it certainly wasn't planned by me, you get access to a lot of wisdom that doesn't come from me. It came from the people around me, right? The collective source of every single person that worked from the beginning of time up to the moment that I worked there and then beyond, that had contributed some form of information, knowledge, understanding, and support that would allow us to keep building, right? Building a public company that's worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. In fact, if this company today was to go under, the economy of Canada would tank. Like that's how impactful this company that I work for was and is. So for good or bad or other, she felt like this was what I hired you for, which was sales. So let's just focus on the sales. And this is the critical piece that I want us to all understand, that when you only focus on what you make, but you don't look at your operational expenses, you don't look at what does it take to actually run your business or run your life? What does it take, not just from a monetary perspective, although that's what we're focusing on today, but looking at your time, your energy, your sanity, right? Your peace of mind. What is it costing you? And you don't account for that, then those are going to be big leaks that are going to take away from your top line, which is your revenue or how much you're making. If you are an employee, that is your salary, right? So at the end of the day, her business couldn't keep up with the amount of sales that we were generating. And as a result, it was a catch-22, because in order to make more money, she almost had built a business model where she had to keep spending more money in order to keep making more money. And the margins were getting thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And that meant that at the end of the day, she actually was coming home with less money than when she had under $1 million in revenue. So as a result, her business got leaner and leaner, tougher and tougher, tighter and tighter. And so she felt the squeeze of her money, the pinch of her money. Now you might be thinking, well, gosh, like on paper, she's a millionaire. Like she's making $1 million. She's making multi-million dollars. Yes, she was. But she wasn't leaving home with $1 million. Okay. Now, client number 2, on the flip side, this client was making, let's say, about 40, maximum $50,000 a year. Okay. Now, over 10 years ago, she had a major catastrophic, geez, Susan, financial emergency that wiped her out. Okay. Actually, back in 2008, was over leveraged in the real estate market and wiped her out. Now, along with her financial, assets, it wiped out more than just money. It wiped out her confidence. It wiped out her ability to trust in herself. It wiped out so many things about her identity as a strong, independent, wealthy woman that really broke parts of her. And as she was coming to grips with that, she just needed something that was stable, even though she was well qualified for something that would make more money than just 40 or 50,000. Now I say just, but I recognize that depending on where you are in your life, in your career, in your journey, that may still be a lot of money. That's okay. But again, I'm going to constantly be challenging you to think bigger, to dream bigger, to aim for higher, because I know that you have it within you. Okay. It might not be in your realm of possibility yet. That's okay. And even if you have done more like this woman and you find yourself at a crossroads in a place where you've had to make some sacrifices or choices and some trade-offs in order to accommodate like this client and have had to go with less. I hope that part of the story is going to inspire you that regardless of what your situation is, it's really not so much about what you make. These are all different levers. These are all different components that in the grand scheme of your life, your wealth and your rich life, that you get to make choices that will make the best outcomes for you. And every step of the journey, the best is going to look different. Okay. So she needed the stability. She lacked the confidence. And so that's what she was willing to take. But slowly and surely, she was doing the foundational, the unsexy money activities, putting stuff away and desperately continuing to invest in herself and increasing her knowledge, her wisdom, so that she would be able to put herself in a position where she could make more money. Not yet, but make more money. But what she did really well was she was able to spend less than she made. Now you might be thinking, well, how? She went into debt, right? But she was using debt in a smart way. We'll talk about debt in an upcoming video. If it's helpful for you, put debt, like comment, I want to know about debt, smart debt. And then that way I know that that's a video that I'm going to program in because it will be helpful for you. Because I think sometimes we think debt is bad. Debt is not bad, but most people are using money from a traumatic perspective, and they're using money as a way to heal. Those are two separate things. Okay. And side note, you don't need to heal in order to do well with money. Two separate things. Okay. So when people say, well, you have to heal your money story, you have to heal your money beliefs, you have to get rid of all of your limiting beliefs in order to be able to become rich. No, you don't. You don't need to do any of that stuff. In fact, I became a millionaire before I even knew anything about a limiting belief or money stories or any of that stuff, because math is very linear. Like 1 + 2 = 3. 1 × 3 = 3. It follows rules and principles that have universal truths applied to it. You apply the truth and you get the result. So this client applied the universal truths, which is if I make this amount and I spend less than that amount, then I can save or invest this amount. And if I do that consistently and regularly, doing it in a way that is aligned to my investor profile and the way that I want to grow wealth, with the choices and the investment options that I'm looking for, then guess what? My assets will grow. And they have. So remember what I said, wiped her out. Okay. Financial crisis wiped her out. So she was in the hole. Okay. She was in debt, not by a few thousand, by tens of thousands. I think it was upwards of $45,000 that she was in the hole when she was starting to do this. Okay. So she let me know just a few short months ago that she has crossed the 6-figure in assets. So that means that what she has in the bank has crossed 6 figures. And for the last 5-6 years, she hasn't made more than between $40,000 and $50,000 a year. Now, she's made trade-offs. She's made choices in order to be able to live the lifestyle. I heard about somebody who was an 8-figure business owner. Okay. He had a wife, 3 children, and fell on hard financial times just recently within the last 4 or 5 years. Okay. So he went from having this very successful, very big business to all of a sudden finding himself in debt and not knowing what to do. And he sold what else he had, and they moved in with his parents. Talk about humbling, right? Now, I don't know your situation or circumstance. I don't know if you have friends or even family that would be able to allow you to do that if you needed to. But I will tell you that there are so many people who have gone from riches to rags, back to riches, or anywhere in between, because you don't need to have a rags to riches sort of story in order for this to be a success. That they have had to go from here's where I thought I was and what I thought I was doing to having a very humbling moment where we are faced with the reality of what am I doing with the choices I have? And am I operating appropriately for the goals and the outcomes that I actually desire? And if there's a disconnect, right? Like if you have a crossing of wires, that there's an opportunity before the big windfall, before the big kahuna, before you climb the giant mountain, that you're going to be able to say, hey, let's get this sorted. Let's get this cleaned out. Let's get this locked and loaded, right? So with those 2 stories, the tale of the 2 clients, one was making considerably more, but it's all, and I've talked about this many times, that oftentimes what ends up happening is that people get lifestyle creep. The more you make, the more you spend. The bigger the car, the bigger the house, the bigger the vacations, the more things that you buy, the less attention that you pay to those little things that feel like you're just nickeling and diming yourself to death, because that's often what happens. The things that you buy consistently and more frequently. So little things, right? Eating out for dinner every day. If you previously couldn't afford to do that, or you didn't have the extra funds to be able to do that, so it wasn't a priority, and then all of a sudden you're making more. So you think, well, I'll just eat out for lunch today. And then it becomes today and tomorrow. And then it becomes every single day. And then it becomes every day of the week, right? Like every single time that you go out, it's no longer a special occasion. And I'm not saying that you cannot do that. I'm saying that when we look at where did the money go? Because that's usually what clients say is, Susan, I have no idea where the money's gone. And I get them to just evaluate, go and look. They're scared to look because secretly they do know. When they look at the back of the closet, when they look in the fridge, when they look in the garbage can, when they look in their cars, right? When they look in their kids' rooms, they can see where that money has gone. And it makes them feel a certain way. But here's the thing, it doesn't need to make you feel anything at all. What it needs to do is have you take a look and say, is this the kind of behavior that I want to continue to do? Or do I need to make different choices? Because the power is within your hands. But if you keep being oblivious, blindly just moving through life, thinking that everything's just happening to me instead of happening for me, and I am an active, willing participant in what the outcomes get to look like, then you take back your power. You have the control instead of saying, oh, inflation's happening, the recession's happening, the government keeps doing all these things. Yeah, they will. From now until the end of time, there will be governments in place. There will be politicians in those governments. There will be monetary policies that are dictated by the governments and the politicians that we elect to put in those places. And they will dictate what we can and cannot do. That's a system issue. So we operate within that system. So to cry foul about a system that we have some say in and not have your say, or to participate in the system and then point a finger and say, well, it's their fault, when there are a lot of choices. Like, out of all of the things that are going on in the world right now, the inflation rate, the prices, that sort of thing, that's one small piece of it, right? And I know that it impacts so many areas of your life. But here's the thing. I have been in the world of business and money since I was 7. But formally as an adult since 1998. Okay, that's a long time. I've been through my fair share of recessions and come out ahead. And so I share this from that perspective, from the voice of experience, from the voice of what I hope is rational thought and reason, coupled with some faith and supernatural insight, divinely guided, that if you think the sky is falling, whether the environment around us, the interest rates, and whether or not the economy is working is going up or down, you will be right. The point of this is really for you to look at, what do I have control over? And then what am I doing about those things that I have control over? And am I wasting a lot of time focusing on things that are outside of that purview? Because that's a lot of wasted energy, right? So if you know what to do with the money that you have, as little as it is, it doesn't matter, right? Look at the example that I gave you, that I know, and I've shared this many times with that client, that the minute that she makes 400,000 or 4 million, that her wealth is going to exponentially increase, because she's already practiced the skill set and demonstrated the behavior. She is the person that could hold on to a lot more wealth because she has the discipline, the character, the consistency. Is that sexy? No, it's not. It's way sexier to be like, I made $1 million. I made a multi-million-dollar year. Like, I have $10 million. I have, right? Like, I have a $10 million business. Okay, great. What does that mean? I would much rather work with the client who might have less, but is able to do more with what she has, who shows the character and the discipline and the behaviors of somebody who can stick with something, because that is ultimately what's going to get you richer. That is the smart route, not about hustling and grinding and working and continuing to work over and over again, simply because that's the easier route that most people are talking about. Do I want you to make more? Yes, I do. But I want you to do it in a way where you are actually working less. And it takes work to get there, because the habit of what you're going to be used to is you're going to have to unlearn some patterns of behavior. You're going to have to unlearn how you think about money and how you think about yourself relationally to money. And you also need to look at what are some of the things that I am doing right now that is basically shooting myself in the foot. Like client one that I told you about, she wanted to keep making more money at all costs almost. And that's what it took, right? And so because of how she was oriented, it's like a compass. She was geared towards this is what I want. And the route that I need to get there is more sales. Well, yes and no. There actually was an easier way to do that. But because she wasn't open to seeing it, it didn't matter if I had given her a different route. She was already presupposed, right? So if right now you're thinking, well, in order for me to be richer, I need to make more money, then me telling you this, again, that's why I had said at the beginning, just be open to the opportunity that maybe this is a different way to look at it. Because without that openness, you're going to be pigeonholed into, no, I got to make more money. The reason why I'm not richer today is because I'm not making enough. Now, that may or may not be true. In fact, most of my experience has told me that that actually isn't true. It isn't true, right? I started growing my wealth when I was making $10.50 an hour as a college grad, 5-year college degree. When I first started teaching people about money, I was knee deep, like not even knee deep, like I was drowning in student loan and credit card debt. I was renting a 2-bedroom place with my girlfriend, right? If she had missed out on rent, I would be hooped. Like I was budgeting to the penny. So when I share this, I say this from the perspective of I know what it's like to not have 2 nickels rubbed together. Like honestly, I do. But I also know what it's like when you think you have more money and it still sometimes isn't what you thought it was going to be, and to keep moving the bar and to also have people go, well, surely that's enough. You know, isn't that enough? Have you made how much more you need? And I want to challenge all of us in this conversation because I think sometimes we, especially as women, we allow ourselves to take on other people's beliefs, thoughts, words, and even their actions, right? Because our brain has what's called mirror neurons. And that means that if you're sitting with somebody and they do this, if you are simpatico with them, right? Here's the rub. If you like them, if you align with them, you're going to probably at some point cross your arms without even knowing. You're going to cross your legs the same way. You're going to do this. Like you're going to look like a mirror because our brains are hardwired to do this. If you see dogs, animals are notorious for this, but if you're walking 2 dogs and you pull one dog this way, the other dog will follow. Same thing. If you pull this way, they'll follow this way. So we're as animals, as humans, we are animals designed to live in community and in packs. And so this is where we have to just pause and question, do I want to believe this anymore? Do I want to allow other people to dictate what I get to do and what I don't? Do I now decide that I am actually, instead of just saying I'm going to work smarter and not harder, but our actions don't align to that, am I now going to kind of retrofit myself to say, you know what? This isn't really smart. Like, I don't have the skills that I need. And maybe I have the skills, but I'm not actively demonstrating those skills. Like, just because you learn something in a book doesn't mean that you know how to do it, right? I've read a lot of stuff. Have I applied all of it? No, because sometimes I don't have the opportunity to do it. I learned how to change a tire when I was 10. I didn't change a tire until I was in my 20s. Was I an expert? In my mind, I was. But I didn't know how much effort or what it would feel like to actually change a tire. side note, it's a lot easier than you would think, but it's, if you can't get the jack on properly, it's a little messy. Okay. But these are all things that from book knowledge alone, I don't have the added perspective. And this is why sometimes when we're being taught by well-meaning humans, our teachers, our professors, a lot of them have a lot of theoretical book knowledge, a lot of research-backed knowledge. That's still valid, but it misses an experiential piece and misses an embodiment piece, like meaning I can tell you exactly what it feels like to have a lot of debt and to start investing and saving with only $25 and to feel like, what's the point? But I can also tell you what it feels like to start seeing even $100 and to see, wow, that $100 has made $1.50. And I did nothing other than just put it in the bank, like put it into my investment. Like, so now understanding that when money can make money, you're like, wow, it actually does work. Now I can see it. But on the flip side, I also have to be okay with, depending on the investment that I've chosen, I put in $100 and now it's down to like 98. What am I going to do? Right? So making more money is not the key. It's the gas that once you have the skill sets, the baseline, the foundation, and if you need this information, go and grab my ABCs of Building Wealth ebook. You can grab that at susanmcveigh.com / let me see if I have it in here. susanmcveigh.com / wealth. Let's see if I have it. I was just seeing if I had it in my list of links that I'm using, but I don't have it on there. So I apologize. Could I type it? I can't type it because my keyboard is on the other side of you, and that would be like as if we're having a hug, which I'm okay with, but that might be a little too close and intimate for the purposes of what we're doing here today. Okay, so make more money, absolutely. Make as much money as you possibly can. I believe that entrepreneurship or having a way to generate income that you control is the best way to do that. But there's lots of ways that you can make more money, right? You can negotiate a salary raise at your job. You can structure, you could get a new job. And yes, there are still jobs to be had, right? Making more money is going to accelerate and quantum leap your rich path, your blueprint to riches. It won't fix a foundational error or a foundational issue. If you don't know how to manage your money, if you don't know how to, actually deal with your money issues, which is not all about your mindset. Sometimes it's a matter of, do you know what to do with the money that you have coming in? Do you know where your money is going, right? Do you know why you spend in certain ways? Can you get out of the lies and the traps of it has to look this way, like client one, that in order for her to have what she wanted, which at the end of the day, most of us want financial freedom. We want to have a certain amount of security of knowing that I have this kind of income so that I can pay my bills, I can live my life, I can do what I want, and then have leftovers to help other people. That in the grand scheme of things, there was a simpler way to do that. The way that she was going about it, yes, did it result in more success? Sure, it did. She made more money. She made more sales. She grew a bigger team, but it created a lot more headache. It was a lot of times managing people, sitting in meetings, having to put out fires. There were operational gaps that weren't addressed as the business kept growing and growing and growing. And so all of these things created huge bottlenecks and friction points that then eroded the extra that was being created, right? And that's why I can say, like, that's not the path that would have been the simplest, the fastest, and easiest. I say this from the perspective of having managed hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of my career, probably billions. Honestly, I didn't count because at the time I thought I was going to be in that job for the rest of my life. So they were just numbers. Building that $15 million business in 18 months taught me that money and growing a business can be simple. It's also hard. I worked really, really hard to do that at a brick and mortar location. So doing it digitally is way easier, way faster, way simpler, far less headache. And you can do this teaching something that you already know. As I shared before, and we'll go into this in a whole separate training, but when I was helping millionaires and billionaires and people who were poor, right, from zero all the way up, I still had student loan debt. I still had credit card debt. I was still renting. I had just started to learn about investing, and I was teaching people financial concepts. So you don't need to be the expert. You don't need to be 10 steps ahead of somebody in order to just start. Sometimes it feels like I can't do that because I haven't achieved a certain level of success. I mean, I'm the poster child. Like, I don't know how else to express this because somebody needs to hear this. I did not know what I was doing around money. I innately knew there was a gift inside of me because my first business was loaning my allowance money to my sisters with a money log. Like, I charged them interest as a 7-year-old. So there was a natural skill set that was just waiting to be developed. But at 22, 23, I had made a lot of mistakes with money. I was not taught this by my parents or at school. And so for me to end up in a finance job, having to teach and is ironic, okay? But God is the ultimate jokester. He has a huge, huge sense of humor. And so for him to place me in someplace that I was deeply unqualified for. I did not have a Bachelor of Commerce degree. I did not have a business background. I did not have any of that. I did not go to school for finance or accounting or banking or anything related to money. And yet here I was as a 23-year-old who looked like I was 12, as people like to point out. Oh, you don't look like you're old enough to work here. Now giving financial advice, like telling people what to do with their tens of thousands, of hundreds of thousands, and millions of billions of dollars, and say, do this, do that. Like, oh, did you know you could save this and that? And then in the online space to do kind of the same sort of thing where I would tell people what they were doing wrong with their content, why their messaging wasn't working, why they weren't getting clients. Meanwhile, I had 0 clients at the time that I was starting to talk about this. I didn't have an online business when I started talking about this. And yet, people started to listen. People started to pay attention. And in some ways, I might continue this conversation over on Instagram right after this. Sometimes not being the expert in some ways makes it easier, right? And so, yes. Okay. So I have to go live on Instagram. If you're here, I don't know why, because I just heard this conversation needs to be on Instagram. So I'm going to go. I'm following divine guidance. God said, and so here we are. Yes, #real life. Come and join me over on Instagram because I'm going to end this broadcast and we're going to go on live on Instagram and we're going to follow this part of the story around your expertise and how you can teach people with stuff that you may not feel as qualified for, but you have the knowledge for it. Okay. So to recap, number 1, making more money is not going to get you richer unless you know what to do with that money. And so the most critical piece is really about what you do with the money that you have. and that with a little managed well, you can be rich. You can be richer than you can imagine. And if you need inspiration and you've joined late, go back and rewatch this whole thing, because the punchline between client one, who made millions, but was not further ahead than client two, who didn't make more than between $40,000 and $50,000, and yet has crossed six figures in net worth after being minus, financially wiped out. I hope provides you with some hope and, inspiration, that just like the millionaire school teacher that inspired me to be a millionaire when I was about 10 years old and I heard her story. She had never made more than $25,000 a year and yet retired a millionaire, which back then could go a little bit farther. Today, it doesn't go as far. It doesn't go as far, right? But it inspired me to take the appropriate actions so that I could be rich, so that I could, achieve the goal that I had to be a certain place in my life, to have a certain level, and to challenge all of us that the money doesn't define who you are, right? The money doesn't define who you are. And the money just gives you the ability to have more options and more choices, and to live whatever it is that you have decided that you get to live with that money in place. But I guarantee that there's probably some parts of that life and that lifestyle that you're imagining and dreaming about that you could have right now, regardless of where you are in your life, regardless of how much you do or don't have, that there are elements of that you can have today, now. And that the faster that you can unhook from the emotional baggage and the weightiness of whatever is that goal of being richer, that the less tethered you are, tied to it, the faster it will happen. The faster it will happen. Yes, even now, even in the midst of the sky is falling, and do you see how bad the world is in the economy and the inflation rate, and we're on the verge of a recession, we're on the verge of a war, and it's like, I get it. I'm not so delusional that I am like in La La Land, but I want you to know that you have full control. You have full control. There are people who always and forever have made it through, and you can decide if you're going to be one of those, or if you're going to be the one that is going to not. Right? This is a fork in the road where you get to make a decision. Are you going to be the one that's going to decide, I'm going to be rich no matter what? And I'm not talking about being bad, like doing like ungodly things. I'm talking about, am I committed to that outcome? Am I committed to that person who I'm becoming, that I am willing to do the hard things? Because it is hard to change yourself. I'm willing to do the hard things. So that, just like what we're talking about today, it's not about making more. Changing that paradigm is hard. Changing the behaviors that make you spend more as you make more is hard. It's hard to say, no, I'm not going to justify spending whatever I want simply because I'm making more and more and more, because that's a trap. And I'm not talking about just hoarding and hoarding and hoarding. You have to learn how to spend. You have to learn how to earn. You have to learn how to manage. Like, these are all skills, and they're all separate, but you can learn them. And you get to decide today, are you going to be the one that learns those skills? And then once learned, you're going to apply them. You're going to do them, right? Are you going to be a hearer of the word or a doer of the word, right? Or are you going to decide, nope, they're right, I can never get ahead, sky's falling, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, let's just pack it up and we're just going to hunker down for the next couple of years until it all passes through. Yep. Okay, Mom, let's get in the back. Time for a break. I'm making light of it because I know that it can feel really heavy, but I want you to know you don't need to have the answer today, but you do need to make a decision. You do need to make a decision, and not making a decision, as I say many times, is still making a decision. You're still making a decision. Okay. So be mindful, be conscious of what it is that you want. And if richer is the goal, the name of the game, then stop thinking that it has to be about you making more. Making more is gasoline that's going to expedite and accelerate the process for you. So with that, we're off. Come and meet me over on Instagram. If you're on here live, and if you're on the replay, you can still come over and meet me on Instagram. And if you can't find the video when you're watching the replay, then just send me a message saying, look, that you're looking for the video on not needing to be an expert, and I will share the link with you.